The Matrix Reloaded came with massive expectations and was packed with bold filmmaking choices, unexpected casting twists, and world-building details that fans still debate. The anticipation was enormous after the first film became a cultural landmark, and the production pushed boundaries to meet those expectations, like spending a full year planning the highway chase and constructing an entire highway just to film it. Behind the scenes, Seraph was originally written for Jet Li, then reimagined for Michelle Yeoh before becoming the character we know today. And tucked into the cast is a fun, real-life detail. Gina Torres, who plays Cass, was actually married to Lawrence Fishburne during filming, and there's still a lot to unpack. So let's dive into the layers that make this sequel such a fascinating piece of sci-fi history. The famous Burly Brawl, which is another name for the huge fight where Neo takes on Agent Smith and dozens of his clones, was such a massive and complex scene that it took 27 full days to film. The filmmakers couldn't rely only on real actors and stunt work, so they also created 4 separate computer-animated sequences to show moments that were too difficult or impossible to shoot in real life. By the time the fight reaches its peak, Neo is surrounded by and battling more than 80 versions of Agent Smith, which shows just how overwhelming Smith's ability to duplicate himself has become. Additionally, the filmmakers didn't have Hugo Weaving physically play every single Agent Smith clone you see on screen. He played only a small number of them, because having him perform every clone would have been impossible for the large crowd scenes. To solve this, the production team held open casting calls to find men who had a similar height, build, and overall body shape to Weaving. These stand-ins acted out the scenes, and later, using digital effects, the visual effects team replaced their faces by superimposing Weaving's head onto their bodies. This technique made it look as if dozens of identical Smiths were present, even though only a few were actually played by the real actor. The massive highway chase was also so complex and demanding that it took 1 year to plan and 7 weeks to shoot. Because no real highway could be shut down for that long, the production built its own at the closed Alameda Naval Air Station. They repaved and painted the main east and west runways, turning them into a realistic restricted access freeway complete with proper entrance and exit ramps. Large sound barrier walls were added not only to mimic real highways but also to limit what the camera could see, which made it much easier to replace the background with a CGI skyline. Even today, satellite and aerial images still show traces of this custom-built highway, especially if you look at older imagery from around October 2002. To make the chase feel real, GM donated 300 cars for the production, and by the time filming wrapped, every single one of them had been destroyed. The character Seraph was originally created specifically for Jet Li because the filmmakers wanted his unique martial arts style to shape the role. However, Li turned it down as he didn't want his martial arts moves digitally scanned and owned by a studio, which he felt would allow them to reuse his likeness without him. After he declined, the Wachowskis reimagined Seraph as a female character and offered the part to Michelle Yeoh. She was interested but ultimately had to refuse because she was recovering from an injury and had already committed to other projects at the time. Additionally, the filmmakers originally wanted Sean Connery to play the architect, the mysterious character who explains the deeper workings of the Matrix. Connery ultimately turned the role down because he found the story and ideas too confusing and said he simply couldn't understand what the movie was trying to say. He later talked about this in an interview included on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen DVD. After he declined, the role went to Helmut Bacchus, who became the on-screen version of the architect audiences now recognize. Marcus Chong, who played Tank in the first Matrix film, was originally expected to return for The Matrix Reloaded, but a serious and bitter conflict between him, the Wachowskis, and the studio led to his character being written out and killed off-screen. The official explanation was that salary negotiations fell apart. The studio offered him $250,000 for both sequels, 5 times what he earned for the first movie, but Chong insisted on $1 million instead. Chong disagreed with this version of events and later sued the company, saying they failed to honor what he described as a verbal promise and a written contract guaranteeing his involvement in the sequels. He also claimed that the Wachowskis tried to damage his reputation with false statements, which he believes caused him to be blacklisted in Hollywood. The studio responded by saying Chong had been arrested for making threats toward the directors after the negotiations collapsed. Years later, in 2018, Chong released a YouTube documentary titled The Marcus Chong Story, where he repeated and expanded on his accusations, alleging that the studio denied him royalties, pressured him into signing a fake contract, and even attempted to silence him, while also criticizing several former colleagues from the production. For The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions, the Wachowskis agreed to return as writers and directors only if their contract included a special condition. They would not be required to do any media interviews. They preferred to let the films speak for themselves and were known for being very private, so they didn't want to take part in the usual press tours, talk show appearances, or promotional interviews that most filmmakers are expected to do. This clause allowed them to focus entirely on making the movies without the pressure of public questioning or publicity events. The production team made a major effort to reduce waste by recycling about 97% of all the materials used to build the film's sets. Instead of throwing everything away once filming was finished, they carefully sorted and repurposed as much as possible. One of the most meaningful examples was the large amount of wood from the sets, which was shipped to Mexico and used to help construct housing for low-income communities. This approach not only kept huge amounts of material out of landfills, but also turned the leftovers from a big Hollywood movie into something that directly benefited people in need. Gloria Foster, who played the Oracle in the first two Matrix films, passed away before filming on The Matrix Reloaded was fully completed. Fortunately, she had already finished most of her scenes for that movie, so her performance remained largely intact. However, she had not yet filmed any of her material for the next projects. The Matrix Revolutions and the video game tie-in Enter the Matrix, which meant the filmmakers needed someone new to take over the role. They chose actress Mary Alice to replace her, allowing the story to continue while also honoring Foster's important contribution to the series. The filmmaker surprised a lot of tech-savvy viewers by showing Trinity performing a hack that was actually based on real tools and vulnerabilities instead of made-up movie code. In the scene, she uses Nmap version 2.54 Beta 25, which is a real port scanning program commonly used by network administrators and also by hackers to check which services on a computer are open or exposed. With it, she discovers that the power station computer is running an old and vulnerable SSH server. She then takes advantage of a real-world flaw known as the SSH1CRC32 exploit from 2001, which allowed attackers to break into systems using that outdated software. The movie doesn't show the technical steps, but the tools and vulnerability mentioned are genuine, making the scene one of the most accurate depictions of hacking in a Hollywood film without actually teaching viewers how to do it. The director of photography for the Matrix trilogy explained in a 2020 Team Deacons podcast interview that making The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions was far more difficult and far less enjoyable than working on the first film. He said that the freedom and creative ease they had on the original movie disappeared once the sequels went into production because the team suddenly felt watched, pressured, and weighed down by expectations. He admitted that he personally didn't like the direction the sequels were taking and felt the production was full of tension, disagreements, and personal issues, which he believed ultimately affected the final film. He also described how the Wachowskis became influenced by a Stanley Kubrick book, claiming actors only give natural performances after being pushed to exhaustion, which led to extremely high numbers of takes. Frustrated, he joked that the experience made him want to, quote, dig Stanley Kubrick up and kill him, showing just how stressful and draining the process had become for him. The movie earned more than $735 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing R-rated movie ever at the time of its release. Interestingly, not every country treated it as an R-rated film. Some places gave it a lighter PG-13 style rating, which helped more people see it. In North America, it broke a long-standing record held by Beverly Hills Cop, which had been the top-earning R-rated film for 19 years. Its time at the top didn't last long, though, because less than a year later, The Passion of the Christ overtook it. This brief but impressive box office reign shows just how huge the anticipation was for the sequel, and how strongly audiences responded to the world of The Matrix. At the start of the film, when Agent Smith arrives in his Audi, the license plate reads IS5416, which is a hidden reference to Isaiah 54:16 from the King James Bible. That verse says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy." The filmmakers chose this verse because it cleverly connects to Smith's role in the story. He is like a tool or weapon forged for a specific purpose, created to carry out destruction within the Matrix. The verse's mention of a smith also plays on his name, making the license plate a subtle but meaningful Easter egg that ties his character to themes of creation, purpose, and destruction. The huge Zion rave scene was created using more than 1,000 extras, making it one of the largest and most complex crowd sequences in the trilogy. All those people were brought in to help show the scale and energy of Zion, the last human city, and to make the celebration feel alive and believable. With so many performers dancing, moving, and reacting at once, the filmmakers were able to create a powerful moment that contrasted the dark, mechanical world of the machines. The large number of extras also meant the production had to coordinate costumes, choreography, lighting, and camera work on a massive scale, turning the scene into a major logistical challenge, but also one of the film's most memorable visuals. The Merovingian's garage is filled with 18 different Cadillacs from various eras, creating a showroom-like display that matches his character's love of luxury and excess. Because the movie was filmed in Australia, where cars are right-hand drive, the production team had to modify most of the vehicles to look correct on camera. They sourced the Cadillacs through the Cadillac Association of New South Wales, then inserted fake steering wheels on the right side, while covering up the real ones on the left. This clever trick allowed the cars to appear authentic for the film's setting, even though they were being driven in a country with the opposite driving configuration. Gina Torres appeared as Cass, the widow of Dozer, who was one of Morpheus's crew members in the first film. Interestingly, Torres and Lawrence Fishburne, who obviously plays Morpheus, were actually married during the time the movie was being made and had one daughter together in 2007. Their marriage didn't last, however, as they separated in 2016 and finalized their divorce in 2018, ending their 14-year marriage. After the tragic death of singer and actress Aaliyah in a plane crash on August 25, 2001, the production had to find a new actress to play the character Z. Because Aaliyah had already filmed some of her scenes, the casting search for a replacement was highly publicized, with several famous stars rumored for the part, including Eva Mendes, Samantha Mumba, Brandy Norwood, and Tatiana Ali. Ultimately, the filmmakers chose Nona Gaye, who was the daughter of the famous Motown soul singer Marvin Gaye, to take over the role for the rest of the trilogy. The role of Seraph is often seen as a metaphor for a computer firewall, and his very name helps point to that idea. Seraph comes from seraphim, a type of angel described as fiery or burning with intense devotion, which ties directly into the franchise's blend of religious symbolism and digital concepts. Just as a firewall stands guard and only allows trusted users through, Seraph acts as a protector who tests anyone trying to reach important figures like the Oracle. His angelic name, combined with his function as a gatekeeper, fits neatly into the series' mix of spiritual imagery and technological allegory. The many versions of Neo shown on the monitors during the architect scene are often mistaken for recordings of previous ones, but according to the shooting script, they actually represent all the different possible responses Neo could give in that moment. Each screen shows a variation of how he might react, while the camera slowly moves in on the choice he ultimately makes. This idea connects directly to the architect's explanation that free choice is essential to human nature, a concept the machines struggle to grasp because they operate strictly through cause and effect. The scene reinforces one of the film's central themes. Humans are defined by their ability to choose, even when the system tries to predict or control every outcome. And that wraps up this deep dive into The Matrix Reloaded, a film that's far more than freeway chases, philosophy quotes, and green-tinted code. The deeper you look, the more you realize how deliberately the Wachowskis layered symbolism, mythology, and character arcs into every frame, and it's a film that rewards anyone willing to peel back the surface. So if you caught something new today, or if this breakdown helped you see the film in a different light, make sure to hit that like button and share your own interpretations in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss on the newest breakdowns and deep dives. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next video.